Joining me now is Congressman Henry Cuellar, Democrat from Texas. Congressman Cuellar, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being with you.
Well, it's great to have you. We are going to talk about the state of play in Texas in just a moment. But I want to ask you big picture. We are now in the midst of this war with Iran. And I'm curious, do you think it will have an impact on the races in Texas, on the midterms broadly? What do you think Democrats' message should be?
Well, first of all, could it have an impact on the elections? Yes, a lot of it depends what happens, let's say, for the next 30 days. There's a lot of operational realities that we have to look at. I certainly feel that Congress needs to reassert itself, but to do it immediately, that just doesn't meet the operational realities. We need to assert ourselves at least 30 days, from the time that the conflict started. So we can go ahead and look at the operational reality. So can it have an impact? A lot of it depends the next 30 days.
Let me ask you about your primary. First of all, give us a sense of your closing message as you head into the final votes being cast. And do you think you would have faced a tougher primary challenge if the president hadn't granted you a pardon in December?
Well, look, even before he gave me the pardon, I had tough races. In fact, the left or the progressives had spent over $20 million that we could count the last primary races in 2 primaries. So I faced this before, but certainly now we're going to win this primary today, and then we're going to go into the November election. But I can tell you there was not a paradigm shift in South Texas going Republican. They voted for President Trump because of open borders and high costs of groceries and other items. But there are people that are having buyer's remorse. Prices are high. Remember, he said that he was going to lower prices on the first day. That hasn't happened. Tariffs are a hidden tax on it. And the other thing is, we're not talking about open borders now, but we're talking the way the aggressiveness of ICE on people on work sites that are not focusing on criminals, but they're focusing on work sites where people don't have criminal records or have lived here for a long time, and they're focusing on those people. That affects the economy. That raises prices along with tariffs, which are a hidden tax.
Let me ask you, because President Trump did mention you in a social media post, I want to give you the opportunity to respond. He says this: I don't know why, but the fact that Henry Cuellar would be running against Donald J. Trump and the Republican Party seems to be a great act of disloyalty, and perhaps more importantly, the act of a fool who would immediately go back to a political party, the radical left Democrats, whose views are different from his. What's your response to that, Congressman?
Well, look, first of all, I am thankful for the president for the pardon that he gave both my wife and I. We can go into the details of the timing, what the DOJ did. We can talk about that. I can talk about the legal opinion that I had, the 2 ethics opinions. I can talk about all that. But let me tell you something. Look, I'm a Democrat. I'm a conservative Democrat. I'm not on the left. And I think, people that go too far to the right are wrong. I follow the words of LBJ, where he said many years ago, I'm an American, I'm a Texan, and then I'm a Democrat. And I think, both parties do a mistake when they put party before country. We need to put country before any political party.
Well, I want to ask you about the big Senate race in your state. You represent a district that really typifies Democrats' struggles in recent elections. South Texas, Hispanics along the border. So I'm curious, we're obviously going to be watching that vote very closely. Do you think Jasmine Crockett or James Tallarico would better win back those votes in a general election? In other words, who's the stronger general election candidate?
Well, certainly they both have their own strengths. And I think, the segment before here, I think they analyzed this where Crockett is strong in East Texas and the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And Tallarico is strong in the area of the Austin area where he's from. But a lot of it depends what's going to happen with South Texas and the border and the Hispanics. I think that's going to make the change, or is going to make the difference, not only for that race in the Democratic primary, but certainly it's going to have an impact when we look at the general election for Democrats.
Well, and so who do you think, because that seems to be part of where the battle lines are being drawn in that critical Senate primary, which is that Jasmine Crockett and James Tallarico are both arguing that they would be the stronger candidate in the general election. Who do you think, which candidate do you think has a better shot at flipping Texas, which hasn't been done in more than 3 decades, Congressman, by Democrats in a Senate race?
Well, I remember when we had the last Democrat that won statewide. It's been a long time. It's been a drought. But I think it's going to change. The question is, and I'm going to, again, avoid your question again because I'm trying to focus on my race in South Texas. So thank you for asking me twice, and I'll give you the same answer. Look, depending who wins on the Republican, because there's 2 things we're looking at. We're looking at the Republican primary. We're certainly looking at the Democratic primary. But I really feel if you look at the number of Democrats that have come out, we have outpaced the Republicans. No ifs, no buts. Now, Texas is still a Republican state, but I'm hoping that we're seeing a change because people just want to see this change where they don't want this extreme right. A lot of the things that they've done down here just doesn't hit well in South Texas. And again, I'll emphasize South Texas. There was not a paradigm shift here. There were people that didn't like what Biden did with open borders, but now they don't like what the president and the Republicans are doing, building border walls when, the numbers have gone down at the border, and the aggressiveness of ICE has just turned a lot of people, and certainly the tariffs are hitting tax on consumers, and not even talking about the big, beautiful bill. That's a different conversation that we can certainly criticize the Republicans on.
Congressman, let me ask you quickly before I let you go. Republicans, including DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, who was on the Hill today, are arguing that what is happening in Iran has added urgency to the need to end the partial government shutdown, with DHS being shut down because of potential threats here at home. What say you? Will you, in fact, vote to reopen DHS now that the United States is at war?
Well, I'm the top-ranking Democrat on the Homeland Appropriations Committee. I supported it, some time ago, and I'm going to support it again. I wish that the White House, because it's not a negotiation between House and Senate Democrats or Republicans, it's a negotiations with the White House. The Republicans are given the power of the Appropriations Article 1 to the White House. If they would work with us a little bit more oversight and rail guards on ICE, I think we can get this done. But again, I represent a lot of Border Patrol agents, TSA, and a lot of folks down here. Per capita, there's more Homeland folks. So I look forward to supporting Homeland, but I wish they would be a little bit more, the Republicans be a little bit more reasonable on some of the ICE rail guards that they know should be done.
All right. Congressman Henry Cuellar, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.